So this is a form for somatic cells, a diploid cell before meiosis with 2 pairs of chromosome, and we indicate, so this is a homologous chromosomes, one kind and the other kind. Let's consider one locus of the gene 1 and the other locus of gene 2. And this, once meiosis happens, that leads to 4 possible haploid cells. So that one from this chromosome and the other from this chromosome. This is 2 and 2, so 2 multiplied by 2 is 4 different kinds you can think of. So for example, this is a father actually from a sperm and mother's egg, which has this haploid cells. Then once it's fertilized egg, that will contain a combination of these 2. So you can so look at this homozygous at locus for, so these one and these one, you see the allele of one gene is different and we call it heterozygous, and these alleles of gene 2s are the same and we call it as homozygous. So the human cells that contain total 46 chromosomes, which is containing 2 copies of each chromosome, and that we call diploid. Di, this di means a pair or 2. And the paired chromosomes are called homologous chromosomes. So in this one and this one. But the reproductive cells, such as sperm and eggs, will have half of this chromosome, and these cells we call a gamete, okay? So sperm cells or egg cells, and so they contain only half of the number of chromosomes, and thus we call it as haploid, okay? So germ cells are haploid cells. And the location of this gene, the physical location of a gene on a particular chromosome, we call it as a gene locus. So I want to summarize genetics in terminology, which is important for understanding for the rest of the class. So each heritable feature, such as eye color or hair color, and that we call as a character. And that character can have a variant. For example, eye color, I have a brown eye color, some people has a blue eye color, and those we call it as a trait. Okay, so each of alternative version of a gene as DNA sequence in the gene can vary from one chromosome from another because we have a copy of chromosome. So the genes can carry the same sequence or different. And each alternative version of this gene we call as a allele. Okay, so homologous chromosome is a pair of chromosomes with the same gene, although may possess either identical alleles or 2 different alleles. So when these alleles are identical individual, we call it as homozygous for the gene controlling that character. If they are not identical, then we call heterozygous. Okay, so these traits, such as a blue eye, is exhibited, we call it, because we can see it as a phenotype. However, the genetic makeup can be not the same. So that is a genotype. So with this, we have to discuss so how the genotype and phenotype relation. So one question we can ask is, hey, I can see your trait. I have a brown eye color, brown hair, yellow skin color. Can you infer my genotype from phenotype? The answer could be, it's not exactly, because maybe the phenotype is the same, but the genotype could be different, okay? So that's, we call it as individual with 2 different alleles called the heterozygous. One of the alleles could be dominant or fully expressive, and The other can be without noticeable effect, is called recessive. Because of these aspects, we cannot infer a genotype directly from phenotype, but we can actually think about the probability. So all of this lead to us the question of why do we study this? Because many diseases are related to our genes. And so we can ask, hey, there are genetic diseases and such as single gene defect. I told you cystic fibrosis, and this is affecting CFTR gene, and Huntington's disease. Still, we cannot cure these individuals. And what about cancer and cardiovascular disease or type 2 diabetes? And this we know a lot more than before now, which is involved with the polygenic, meaning by it's not just single gene defect, it's involved with changes and alterations of multiple genes. And that we are now considering this has a lot of effect on environmental aspects. So it's very hard to treat by these diseases. And so we have to know a little more about this. Okay, here comes a practical question, which I guess you have already practiced, but just to make sure you know the basis, calculate the probabilities for the outcome of mating a homozygous male having capital AA with a heterozygous female, capital A and lower capital A. So, and capital A usually means dominant, and lowercase usually recessive. So the probabilities of outcome of a genotype and phenotype. So we discuss molecular principles in DME. So we discuss the structure of protein, which is a polymer of amino acid. And these diversity of 20 amino acid structure influence the eventual resultant protein three-dimensional structure and its function. And regarding to genetics, we understand the structure of nucleic acids, and that's composed of polymers of nucleotides, and how this structure is different between DNA and RNA polymers. And the importance of the DNA and its structure directly leads to its function, which is storing genetic information. And that leads to our better understanding of genetics from the past as a molecular level. And that we call now as a genomics, because we now having information of the whole genome. So next time we will get into more detail. Thank you for your attention.